All right, well, hello, greetings. I have a message today that is a message for me. If you get something out of it, that's great, but that wasn't my goal. I tend to research and look into things that I struggle with, that are challenges for me, so this is a challenge for me. I don't have any answers, I just have lots of questions, and I'm going to let you hear those questions so you can think about them too, and you can hate me for that later. I think it's important to kind of define your terms to give you the kind of perspective that I'm coming from when I say freedom in balance. So I'm going to start by defining freedom. Freedom means different things to different people. I know this is a complete taboo, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to talk about politics for about 30 seconds, so bear with me. But while Republicans and Democrats do their thing and they try to get your money and make more laws to keep you from doing the things you want to do, whatever, I kind of lean toward the libertarians, and they're working for freedom to undo all that stuff so you can have your freedom back. So when they define freedom, I kind of listen to what they say because that's kind of what they're all about. So libertarians define freedom as these are the three pillars of freedom: life, liberty, and property. So these are yours. These are things that you have that are yours to do with as you choose. You use your life, your liberty, and your property the way you want to in a perfect world. Crimes are defined by people violating these things. If they violate your life, we call it murder. If they violate your liberty, we call it kidnapping. If they violate your property, we call it theft. Our economics are tied up in exchange of these things. If you exchange, say, 40 hours of your liberty for somebody else's property, we call that a full-time job. If you exchange some of your property for somebody else's property, we call that shopping. If you give your life, your liberty, and your property to somebody else for no reason at all, we call that love. It's kind of like everything's kind of tied up in freedom. So these things are yours to use as you see fit. When I talk about balance, it's not necessarily a right versus wrong thing. It's just that we have choices to make, and they require some judgment in how we choose to use our freedoms. So let me give you a couple of examples. Here are two things you've seen before: opposites attract and birds of a feather flock together. Which one of these is true?
Yes.
Well, yeah, it depends. It depends what you're kind of talking about. Here's a great example straight out of the Bible. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest yourself also be like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own estimation. Now, which one of these is true? They're both in Proverbs. Do you think the guy who wrote this didn't know what he was saying? Look at the verses. They're right next to each other. Okay, so he's saying, don't argue with fools, but sometimes you got to call people out on stuff. Can't let them get away with things. So there's my examples. So there's balance. You need to have some judgment. So look at the first one here, life. Went to look up the definition for life, and even Wikipedia tells me it's a challenge for scientists and philosophers to define life because it's process. Well, okay, it's a process. So our attitude or our approach to that process, it's your choice. How do you go through life? What's your process? What is your approach to life? Here's a handful of possible choices. No, that isn't. That's not a handful of possible choices. There they are. Whoops, I went too far. There we go. All right, I could have chosen hundreds of different things. Here are 5. Some people choose to go through life worried. Some people are fearful, some are angry. Some spend their life in bigotry or with pride. Lots of different things. But what we know is that God provides answers. He provides guidance for us to make better choices. So, hold on, I've lost some notes. This isn't good. All right. So, Philippians says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything with prayer. Let your requests be made known to God so you don't worry. 1 John 4:8, perfect love casts out fear. Proverbs 29:11 says, a fool lets fly with his temper, but the wise holds it back. Colossians 3:11 says that there's neither Greek nor Jew, Christ is in all. And Philippians 2:3, we're supposed to treat others as more important than ourselves. We get guidance how to live our life, but in the end, the choice is still ours, what we do with our life. Liberty. Your liberty is your time. We can spend our time doing whatever we want to a large extent. I have a problem with being obsessive. I'm not necessarily obsessive compulsive, but I get obsessive about things. Here's one example. You ever seen one of these little guys? The happy dippy drinking bird. I was obsessed with these guys for a while. Not just these guys, but external combustion engines, Stirling engines, the Minto wheels, and all that kind of stuff. I pictured acres of these things out, seeing if I could power my house with how many acres of these guys doing their thing. But you know, that was just one of thousands of examples. I'm sorry, wife. But how much sleep have I lost with the various things that take over my mind, and you know, how many times has my family been trying to talk to me and I'm just like somewhere else? How many times have I not been listening to what God had for me because I was too busy thinking about something as dumb as a toy? But God tells us there's better things we can do with our liberty. At some point we'll see what those are. All right. So here's some examples of things we can do with our liberty. We can serve, fellowship, prayer and Bible study, hospitality. We see these all through the Bible. Eating, drinking, and being merry. I mean, Ecclesiastes 3:15. It's the best book in the Bible for what it's worth. So I recommend the enjoyment of life. There's nothing better on earth for a person to do except eat, drink, and enjoy life. How do you use your liberty? It's your choice. It's your choice. Now, I'm going to go back and remind you that this message is for me. Because a bunch of you are about ready to say, wait, he's meddling. And I'm not meddling, I'm talking to me. But the next one is am I hitting the wrong button? I don't know, I must be hitting the wrong button. The next one's our property. What do we do with our property, our money, our possessions, our wealth? We are wealthy. Are we wealthy? You see this watch up here? Same watch I got right here. This watch is awesome. I love this watch. I just got it. It is 100% mechanical. I have to wind it. It has these little gears. It's got 17 little pieces of ruby where every wheel and bearing is to keep the movement perfect. You can watch the gears move, and I just sit and stare at it sometimes because it's so awesome. And I pondered, what would it be like if we were to take like the smartest guy we know who knows all about mining and ore and glass blowing and watchmaking and leather working, and we sat him in a field with lots of natural resources and said, come back when you've built me this. How long would it take him to do that? Could it be measured in years? Would it be a lifetime? How much would Julius Caesar have paid me for that watch? How much of a Pharaoh's kingdom would he have given away to have that? It cost me $32 Canadian, which works out to $26.32, including shipping from Hong Kong. We are so ridiculously wealthy, it's not even funny. So, is it okay to be rich? You know, I've spent my whole... a buddy of mine put something up on his blog, and he put this up, which is kind of a fake quote, but it's the modern evangelical teaching on wealth. It's a danger that takes us away from God, but wealth in and of itself isn't wrong. You can be rich as long as you don't let your wealth get between you and God, and as long as you use your money responsibly and give generously. I've heard this my whole life. It's not money that's the root of all evil, it's the love of money. So as long as your heart's in the right place, it's all good. But when I read the Bible, I see something different. I see something very different. Old-fashioned Bible teaching says, don't accumulate for yourself treasure in heaven. Sell your possessions, give to the poor. Blessed are you if you're poor. Woe to you who are rich. The person who has 2 tunics must share with the person who has none. Let the person who has food do likewise. I don't say this so that there's relief for other people and suffering for you. I say it as a matter of equality. Not one of you can be my disciple if he does not renounce all his own possessions. And this is the one we hear about the most, I think, which is, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. I've always heard this put backwards. I've always heard it, if your heart's in the right place, your treasure will be there where your heart is. But that's not what I read. It says the treasure goes first. You know, you put your treasure somewhere and that's where your heart is. If you're putting your money into your car, that's where your heart is. If you're putting all your money into a mission field in Haiti, you have a heart for Haiti. If you put your money into your kids, you've got a heart for your kids. If you put your treasure into HarborPointe, you've got a heart for HarborPointe. So then I started looking at some church leaders, some guys from the past who have really challenged me, and I'd like to share a little bit about them. The first guy is, I'm not going to ask you to identify these people. I'll just put them up there and let you know who they are. John Wesley. John Wesley is well known for preaching about his love for God and love for his neighbor. When he first started working at Oxford University, he was paid £30 a year, which was more than enough for a single guy to live on. And he had an incident happen to me, or happened to him, not to me. He had an incident happen to him where he had just gotten back from shopping, and he bought some pictures to hang on the wall of his room. And one of the chambermaids came to his door, and he saw that it was a winter day, and she had only a thin linen garment to wear for protection against the cold. And he reached into his pocket to give her some money to buy a coat, and he didn't have enough left after a shopping trip. And he asked himself, "Will thy master say, 'Well done, good and faithful steward'? Thou hast adorned thy walls with the money that might have screened this poor creature from the cold. O justice, O mercy, are not these pictures the blood of this poor maid?" That incident changed his life and his perspective. According to his records, his next year, his income doubled. He gave away £2 that year and lived on 28. The next year, his income doubled. He lived on 28 and gave £32 away. The third year, his income jumped to 90. He lived on 28 and gave 62 away. At one point in his career, he was making £1,400 a year, and he lived on 28. He said he never had more than £100 in his house. He gave it away as fast as it came in because he didn't want to be laying up treasures on earth. We don't usually think of John Wesley as a guy who hates anything, but the one thing he hated was the word afford. He said it's the one word Christians should never say. God made us trustees of his resources so we may feed the hungry and clothe the naked in his name. We should turn our extra money into food and clothing for the poor. John Wesley said, "Just as it would be wrong to destroy other people's food and clothes, so also it is wrong to spend money needlessly on ourselves. None can afford to throw away any part of food and raiment into the sea, which was lodged with him on purpose to feed the hungry and clothe the naked. But if we're determined to waste God's money, it would be better to throw it into the sea than to spend it extravagantly. At least throwing money into the sea hurts no one, while spending it needlessly on ourselves poisons all who see it with pride, vanity, anger, lust, love of the world, and 1,000 foolish and hurtful desires." So that's a challenge. The next guy who challenged me was St. Francis of Assisi. He resolved to be the poorest of all men. He would trade his clothes with those of any beggar who he found to be dressed more poorly than he. He said, "I think the great almsgiver would account it a theft in me, did I not give that I wear to one needing it more. St. Augustine said, that bread which you keep belongs to the hungry, that coat which you preserve in your wardrobe to the naked, those shoes which are rotting in your possession to the shoeless, the gold which you have hidden in the ground to the needy. Wherefore, as often as you were able to help others and refused, so often did you do them wrong. Tony Campolo. This guy's a character. I was at LaTourneau University in 1988, and he came and gave a talk. I was there for 4 years or so, and his is one of the few chapel messages that I remember. A couple of reasons for that, but one of them is this quote. His message was all about being a follower of Jesus and what that really meant. And he said, I'm asking you to become followers of Jesus. You say, you mean I can't own a Rolls Royce or a BMW? Of course you can't, not and be a Christian. Francis Schaeffer had a book in which he wrote, how many times in the past year have you risked having a drunk vomit on your carpeted floor? How many times have you risked an unantiseptic situation by having a girl who might easily have a sexual disease sleep between your sheets? How many times have you had a drug taker come into your house? Sure, it's a danger to your family and you must be careful, but have you ever risked it? If you don't risk it, what are you doing talking about the drug problem for if in the name of Christ you've not tried to help somebody in this horrible situation? I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm telling me what to do, and I'm not doing a very good job. So these have been challenges for me. So I've talked about life, liberty, and property, and I'm sure quite a few of you have said, wait, it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I know that. I've heard this. Well, the problem is that happiness and property aren't the same thing. There was a study at Berkeley University on what makes us happy. Most people think that what makes us happy are our circumstances. Well, I'm sorry to tell you that they found out that 50% of your happiness is genetic. So I'm sure there's some of you here that are 0% happy in your genetics. And we all know some people who are 50% happy, just naturally, they just always seem to be happy. That's the way it is. They found out that only 10% of our happiness is based on our circumstances. If I only had a new job, I'd be happy. If I only had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, I'd be happy. If I only had a child, if I only had these kids out of my house, if I only had a new car or a car that worked. But your circumstances is only 10%. The other 40% is our activities. 40% of your happiness is completely on you, about your activities. If you figure most of us are, let's say, 25% on the genetic, even if you're having a really good day, you're still only at 35%. It's all about what you do that's going to put you over the top of whether you're happy or unhappy. As I always do, I go out and I gather lots of great quotes from people and put them all together because I don't have anything good to say. So I use what they give me. So here's a good one. Happiness consists in activity. It's a running stream, not a stagnant pool. Nobody gets to the point where they're happy and then they just sit down. I'm happy, I'm done. Because you're not happy anymore then. Happiness requires activity. There's another beautiful quote. Happiness. She loves to see men at work, loves to sweat, weariness, self-sacrifice. She'll be found not in palaces, but lurking in cornfields and factories, hovering over littered desks. She crowns the unconscious head of the busy child. If you see a kid that's happy, what are they doing? They're moving. Usually the faster they are, the happier they are. You know, when you see a kid at the end of the day that's just absolutely wiped out, they had a good day. Happiness requires activity. Are they busy? What are they busy doing? They're not busy pursuing happiness. They're busy going about their business, doing what they want to do, living their life. I've been bothering my wife with this next one all week. Happiness is like a cat. If you try to coax it or call it, it will avoid you. It will never come. But if you pay no attention to it, go about your business, you'll find it rubbing against your legs and jumping into your lap. That's happiness. Go about your business and it shows up. So, my cousin posted this Chinese proverb on Facebook that I'd never seen before. You guys may have seen it. Boy, that's hard to read. But it says, if you want to be happy for an hour, take a nap. You know anybody who's trying to live a happy life 1 hour at a time? I've known some people like that. If you want to be happy for a day, go fishing. If you want to be happy for a month, get married. I guess when the honeymoon's over, the honeymoon's over. If you want to be happy for a year, inherit a fortune. Only good for a year. But if you want to be happy for a lifetime, help somebody else. There's a lot of truth in that. So you may have noticed that the title of my message was actually On Earth as It Is in Heaven. So getting back to my title, how many times have we prayed the Lord's Prayer? And we pray, Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. What does that mean? That's kind of the part of the Lord's Prayer we tend to skip over. We think about God's will being done, but on earth as it is in heaven. What does it mean for God's kingdom to come here? If God's will is done in heaven, what's that like? Is there hunger in heaven? Do they have clean water in heaven? Is there blindness in heaven? I saw a piece recently about how there's 20 million people in the world who are blind with a condition that can be corrected with a $300 surgery. I think about the things I've spent $300 on and weigh that against somebody else being able to see. That weighs on you. Are there homeless people in heaven? Is anyone in heaven unloved? If we want heaven to come to earth, and for God's will to be done on earth like it's done in heaven, what are we doing about it? The choice is ours, what we do with our life, our liberty, and our property. Are we too busy chasing happiness, trying to buy happiness, to miss the happiness that will naturally come from committing our life, our liberty, and our property in service to God? We're His hands and His feet. What are we doing with our freedom to help God's will to be done on earth as it is in heaven? Let's pray. Father, I thank you for everything you try to teach me. I know I fail. I fail repeatedly. And I thank you for bringing things to my attention when I mess up. I pray that you would help me to live the way that you would want me to live. And I pray you would help all of us to think about our freedom and the way we use it, to recognize that we have choices, but we need to balance our choices with the things that you would want us to do. Pray that you would guide us and direct us in service to you. In Jesus' name, amen.